she is perhaps the most famous for writing the great Aloha, the beautiful song, the great song of Hawaii, that for so many Hawaiians is the symbol of Hawaii. Welcome to this History Extra Academy series exploring the lives of some of history's most remarkable queens. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Professor Kate Williams, and in this episode, we're looking at some of the last queens in history and what they tell us about the story of women and power. The Queen of Hawaii was both the first and the last Queen of Hawaii. The future Queen Liliʻuokalani was born in 1838 into Hawaiian royalty, but there are many royal children ahead of her in line for the throne. She was educated at a missionary school in Honolulu, where the children were ill-fed and a measles epidemic swept the school. She grew up writing music and composing, a skill that would become iconic to the founding of the nation. And she also wrote a diary. So, unlike so many queens in history, she recorded her own impressions of her own life, and she later wrote a book about her life, despite many efforts to censor her. In 1862, Liliʻuokalani married an American-born man, John Owen Dominus, the son of a sea captain. And she took a key role at court and in elite Honolulu society. The Hawaiian monarchy had been very much focused on Kamehameha I and his descendants. But in 1874, that dynasty came to an end. With the end of that line, there were elections for the throne, and the brother of Liliʻuokalani proved victorious. Even closer to the throne, as sister to the king, she assumed a particularly significant position. In 1877, she was decreed his heir and toured the islands as the future monarch. In 1887, Liliʻuokalani set off by boat to London to represent Hawaii at the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. She stopped on the way to visit the President of the United States, Grover Cleveland. And I love it because in London, Liliʻuokalani bought a really, really beautiful butterfly brooch, a diamond butterfly brooch. She said that all the other women had so many diamonds, and at the end of her life, she decreed that her jewelry should be sold for charity. But that butterfly brooch was sold, but then found its way back, and you can still see it in the Iolani Palace in Honolulu today. And for me, the butterfly is very suggestive because she was about to be caught. While she was away for Queen Victoria's Jubilee, the enemies of her brother saw their chance to strike. An armed militia demanded that the king dismiss his cabinet and submit to a new constitution written by the landowners, or entirely lose his throne. As Liliʻuokalani put it, the men of foreign birth rose one day en masse and forced the king to sign a constitution of their own preparation, which deprived the sovereign of all power, made him their tool, and barred nearly all Hawaiians from voting or participating in government. Liliʻuokalani rushed back. Her brother travelled to the United States to speak to the government, but died while travelling, and so in 1891 she became queen. Almost immediately, the settler party, the foreign gentlemen, who called themselves the Reform Party, started to push for more power. Queen Liliʻuokalani had her own views. She composed a new constitution restoring rights to the Hawaiians, and this, to those foreign gentlemen, was an act of war. We know about this because the Queen wrote her diaries in little pocket notebooks produced by the Bancroft Company of San Francisco, and they came with these helpful printed pages of tables of measurements, and these same notebooks were used by men and women across America for all kinds of notes, professional, personal, shopping, diaries, and in them the Queen told the story of her life. Some of these were later seized by her enemies, used against her, and never returned. Some are in the Hawaiian archives and also the archives of the Bishop Museum in Honolulu. But when we read them, every word on the often cramped pages is the word of a queen who fought for the Hawaiian people. Post the Queen's Constitution, on the 17th of January 1893, a Hawaiian policeman was shot and wounded while trying to stop a wagon containing guns and ammunition being taken to a committee who wanted power over the islands. It was the beginning. Both sides were ready to fight. Queen Liliʻuokalani was told there would be mass bloodshed, civil war. On the brink of conflict, she could not bear to see her people die and ordered her forces to surrender. The minute she offered surrender, her position was lost. The reform men took over the palace and declared a provisional government. Within a few years, she was accused of plotting a rebellion and she was put in prison in the Iolani Palace, her palace. She was on an upper floor, confined to 2 rooms and not allowed to walk on the balcony in case the people saw her. She was not permitted newspapers, books, or pencils. But the women of her circle sent flowers and cakes wrapped in newspapers which the Queen could read. And the Queen was allowed a needle. They thought it was no threat. But she and a lady-in-waiting who'd been allowed to remain with her began sewing an incendiary quilt, 9 squares of resistance embroidered with a history of her life. This quilt was a document of defiance by a woman facing execution. She told her story and said, "I am queen," wrongly deposed. Her guards thought that the needle was nothing. But the quilt, which you can still see in the Iolani Palace today, was a sensational script of resistance. In January 1895, the Queen was forced to abdicate her throne and put on trial. She was advised not to appear because it would be humiliating. At this, Liliʻuokalani was infuriating. "Humiliation," she replied. "What had I left? They'd taken her homes, her papers, her belongings, seized her throne, confined her." She said she would attend her own trial and be proud of it. She gave a powerful defense, and that was what they didn't want. They were afraid of her words. She was sentenced to hard labor, but ultimately released. Later, Queen Liliʻuokalani traveled to the United States and charmed society in Washington, D.C., but there was no chance of getting her throne back. She lobbied politicians, filed a lawsuit, but nothing worked. It was seen as the deal was done. The Queen wrote her book, Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen, and she also wrote down music. She wrote down the oral traditions of music and songs and chants, and as written down, she preserved them forever. And also, she is perhaps the most famous for writing the great Aloha, the beautiful song, the great song of Hawaii, that for so many Hawaiians is the symbol of Hawaii. A statue of Queen Liliʻuokalani stands in Honolulu near her palace, and she holds the Constitution. At the bottom of her statue, the length of her reign was noted as 1891 to 1893, and that was recently amended to 1891 to 1917, the year of her death.